Before I begin discussing this game in particular, I think I should address something. I'm sure a lot of you probably aren't surprised that a Tomb Raider game is on the list, but I suppose most of you are wondering why this one? Sadly, I don't actually have an answer for you, because Tomb Raider Underworld was one of those games that was received with mixed feelings, and I don't really know why. It did everything it was supposed to do, and more. And honestly, I think it's the game that defines what a next-gen Tomb Raider game should be all about. But I'll get to that later. Now, before I press forward, I think I should mention that I'm going to spoil some direct plot points. They're not big ones, and I'm not going to spoil the ending for you, but if you want to go into this game blind without any spoilers, then you should probably stop watching now. Tomb Raider Underworld continues where the story left off in Tomb Raider Legend. Lara is still seeking answers behind the disappearance of her mother when she was just a girl. As the game goes on, the plot thickens, and towards the end it gets quite good. I also think I should mention, and here's a spoiler, that this is one of the few times I've ever seen an evil twin plot that was done well. I know this plot element is usually considered very cliché and rather undesirable, but I think it works really well for how they tied it in. Besides, if Metal Gear can do it, why can't Tomb Raider? One thing I want to point out, and I know most of you are going to say as soon as I go down this road, but I really gotta say, this game looks fucking beautiful, alright? I know graphics don't make the game, and in this case it's true, it doesn't, but they put a lot of effort to making this game look photorealistic, at least in terms of the environments, and it shows. One of the things that was hyped during development was that as Lara climbs around, she and her clothing get more grimy and covered with dirt. This adds a nice effect to the game and makes it feel even more real than it already looks. In addition, a lot of people have noticed that Lara's animations in this game are probably the most realistic they've ever been. That's because they use motion capture with a gymnast for all of them. I think going the extra mile with the motion capture really sets this game up there in terms of graphical and cinematic presentation. It just looks good. On top of that, there's a beautiful soundtrack to go with it, so there's really no complaints in terms of graphics or sound when it comes to this game. And that's not to say the gameplay suffered because of all the effort they put into visuals. When you're playing Underworld, any real Tomb Raider fan's gonna notice that they really tried hard to replicate what the old games were all about: platforming and adventure. Unlike Legend, which was good but very, very linear, Underworld is far more open. It's more about exploration and trying to figure things out rather than just running forward. That's not to say there weren't puzzles in Legend, but in this case, the puzzles are more spread out, and you have to figure out what order you have to put stuff together and where you have to go next after each thing is done. On top of that, the puzzles are also creative in themselves. It's not just about putting the thing on the thing and making the thing do the thing. There's physics involved with some, and there's more puzzles about order and timing. The platforming is easily as best it's ever been. Exploration and climbing is fun and adventurous. You feel like you're really looking through ancient tombs. I really appreciate that about this game. Combat is decent. It's not as good as you'd find in games like Uncharted, but this game isn't about combat. Whereas the Uncharted games are good, but they lean way more towards cover-based combat, Tomb Raider's more about the platforming end. There's combat segments, to be sure, but they don't make up the bulk of the game, and really are more minor than anything else. And rightly so. Tomb Raider has never been about fighting. In fact, looking back in the early games, any fight was more of an annoyance because what you had to do was clear out any room of any enemies and then try to work out the puzzle. The enemies were just in the way. I like how there's a wide variety of environments to explore, like any Tomb Raider should have. You go around the world trying to find answers. The first level was set in the Mediterranean, but eventually the plot leads you to places like India, Central America, and even the far north. Unlike in the last game on this list, there aren't specific moments in the game, other than blatant plot points that I can't spoil, that really show off what the game is all about. But I'll try to show you some examples as best I can. But just know that this is one of those games you really gotta play for yourself. I think one of my favorite puzzles in the game was in Central America. You're in this big circular room with a bunch of statues and a table in the center. In order to progress, you have to put certain tablets and spears in the correct locations and push the statues forward. This isn't so much a puzzle situation as it is a go get this thing and put it in the thing situation, but it's what you have to do to get these tablets that's hilarious. In no particular order, you'll have to go through the room of Smash You, the room of Flay You Alive, and the room of oh my god, that's a lot of blades. Oh yes, and the fourth room is the room of crawling through a collapsed corridor. Which, I guess is where the developers got uncreative. Who knows? It's definitely one of the more fun and interesting parts of the game. You have to platform to get to each individual room, and you have to be really careful with your timing to get through the more dangerous ones. In addition, there's 2 pieces of DLC specifically for this game. One has Lara going deeper into a tomb she already explored before, only this time she's searching for a different artifact. It's alright, it's a little bland, but it's pretty entertaining. But the better one, the second one, has you playing as Lara's doppelganger, and this is where things get really good. Not only does this DLC draw a plotline that spanned over several games to a really awesome close, but it answers some unanswered questions about the doppelganger. During this DLC, you find out she's not just a mindless zombie out to destroy Lara. There's more to it than that. But I can't tell you any more without spoiling everything. You just have to play it for yourself. But the plot isn't everything. They completely reworked how you play this DLC compared to the rest of the game. You have access to all the doppelganger's abilities. The doppelganger has dark powers at her disposal. They took this DLC and turned an exploration platformer into a beat-em-up style platformer, and it's fucking awesome! This entire DLC is easily one of the best parts of the entire game, and I strongly recommend that if you do get the game, at least try out this DLC. It's awesome. So there isn't much to say without spoiling more than I should. But I will leave you with how the game starts out. When you start the game, this is what you're treated to, and in order to find out how this ties into the rest of the plot, you have to play it. So until next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.